Okay, I think it's time for us to start. Well, I'm Kristen Murphy. I am the treasurer of the Sacramento Food Policy Council, and I've been sitting on the steering committee for about the last 5 years or so. I'm a resident and community member of Sacramento. It's a place I call home, and I've been there for over 10 years at this point. I'd love to introduce briefly the rest of my steering committee team from the Sacramento Food Policy Council. We've got a bunch of folks on tonight. If y'all want to just give a little wave and say hi to the crowd so they can see you and know your amazing work. Thank you, team. Okay, so before we get started, Adrian, if you could go to the next screen, I'd love to make sure that we acknowledge where we are today and where it is that we are talking about. So we are all in Sacramento. Every single district race, and of course the mayoral race as well, sits on unceded Nishnawin and Miwok land. Only in 2009 did our local Wilton Rancheria, located in South County, gained federal recognition after having been terminated in 1959. The Nevada City Rancheria, which is home to the Nishnawin people and located today up in Nevada County, had their federal status illegally terminated in the 1950s and has yet to be restored. Right now, today, they are working actively on restoring that federal recognition and acquiring land. We will share the link to their website in the chat so that way you all can take a look and peruse and see how you can support them. Further, this country was built by enslaved people from Africa. California also specifically utilized the often enslaved, indentured, and unjust labor of other people from the global majority, including the Chinese, Filipino, people of Mexican descent, and from all over Latin America. Government officials and settlers dispossessed Indigenous Americans of their land and exploited Africans and others of their labor and freedom through war and violence, purchase and trade, bribery and trickery, and unfulfilled treaties. This is our inheritance and is actively wrapped up in our food and farming system of today. And so it's important for the Sacramento Food Policy Council to make sure that we're calling this out and incorporating that into our paths forward for a just food and farming system. So I'm just going to take a moment to reflect on that and for us to consider the work that we still need to do. Thank you. Adrian, if you could get to the next slide, please. Awesome, thank you. So we wanted to make sure that everybody here today had the resources they need to become informed and active citizens of Sacramento. So you can find your election information, your district map, and still register to vote if you have not, using these links right here. Would you please go to the next slide, Adrian? Awesome, okay. So this is our agenda for today, and I am so excited to be here with all of you. We have 4 different races that are real big and important here in Sacramento. So we're going to start with District 2. We have 3 different candidates participating, District 4, District 6, and then our mayoral race with 5 different candidates. So we have some questions that we have prepared. We are going to let all of the candidates introduce themselves for 90 seconds with a prompt. And then we will go ahead and start asking the questions. If you are participating as a community member in this, we encourage you to use the question and answer button and put your question in there. The team is aggregating all of those questions, and if we have time, we will ask those also. Perfect, thank you, Adrian. So may I please have the candidates for District 2, Roger Dickinson, Ramona Landros, and Penelope Larry, up on screen with the cameras on, and Adrian will go ahead and spotlight you so that we can get started. Hi there.
Okay, Kristen, do you want me to start?
You know what? We are going to go in alphabetical order, which certainly D is top of that list, but it looks like give me 1 second. I've got a little timer icon that I'm going to put up on the screen so that way we can track What's going on? Adrian, are we missing a candidate?
Yeah, I do not see Ramona on the call.
Okay. Do we want to give it one more minute till 5:40 or however many seconds is left in 39? Move forward. I want to make sure there's time just in case.
The candidates, just in the interest of time, can probably get started with their opening statements.
Sure. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm going to read out this introduction question. And then Mr. Dickinson, if you want to start, and then we'll go to you, Miss Larry. So within 90 seconds, please introduce yourself and your personal and campaign connection to food system issues. Timer in the top corner for you. I'll also notate and wave a little if you're going a little over.
Okay. Well, good evening. I don't see your timer, Kristen, but hopefully I will. I'm Roger Dickinson, and I know a number of you, but I'm pleased to have this opportunity to spend some time on food policy, which is absolutely critical to the health and welfare of our communities. As at least some, if not all of you know, I served almost 17 years on the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors. From 1994 to 2010, served 4 years in the state assembly from 2010 to 2014, and am now running once again for the city council because frankly we have had a serious deficit of leadership over the past 10 years in our part of the city. We have been going backwards rather than forwards. We need to change direction, and I think that with the relationships I've built, the experience I have, the ability to get things done, that hopefully I can lead that turnaround. I might just say quickly in terms of food policy, this is not a new issue to me. I see Brenda Ruiz on the call, and Brenda, I'm sure will recall working together in the early days of starting to address food policy here in Sacramento. I worked with some of you who are old timers, long timers, may remember Bill Maynard, who was really the father of community gardens back in the 90s. Is that a stop? Oh, okay. I couldn't see your clock.
I'm sorry. Can you see it now? Is it visible to both of you?
It's visible to me. I can see it. I can see it all along.
Okay.
Well, now it's gone. So
I just turned it off.
Okay.
Do you want to complete what you were saying? I don't mean to cut you off. Maybe another 5 seconds or so.
I was just going to say very quickly that I actually am the author of the resolution that established Food Literacy Month in California every September, working with Amber Stott at the Food Literacy Center, and also very involved in food policy, carried the legislation that was enacted that redid the law for certified farmers markets in 2014. So just a couple things that I've delved into food policy on over the years.
Thank you. Apologize for the timer situation. Miss Larry, I'm going to go ahead and give you 2 minutes just to make sure it's all balanced. And since we're down a candidate anyway, there's plenty of time. Okay, I'm going to start that now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for this platform and for the opportunity to speak about an issue that is very near and dear to my heart, just food in general. My name is Penelope Larry. I'm running for this seat of City Council for District 2. I have been involved in the community for about 20 years. For the past 7, I've been a leader at the Potter's House Church, where I took over an existing food program that was feeding about 200 individuals. Through under my direction, we are now able to serve somewhere between 2,500 to 3,500 people on an average per month. The numbers that we clocked for 2023 is we served 77,915 individuals. Of course, some of these numbers are duplicated, but we have a program at our church where we feed or we serve groceries every Wednesday for 2 hours. It's been a staple in our community. This is very important to me because food insecurity, because we live in a food desert, because even people that work do not have all of the resources they need to make ends meet throughout the month. And so a lot of our food, we use it to supplement, and it's very helpful to people in the community. And so I'm grateful to be doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Larry. Okay. Great. The rest of our questions will also be 2 minutes. And Mr. Dickerson, I'll turn it back over to you. So number 2, it seems possible that the next city council member for District 2 may face the loss of Viva Market, which would leave Del Paso Heights without a grocery store. Please share how you would address immediate food access needs for local residents and plan to restore or improve food access in the future if Del Paso Heights were to lose their only grocery store. 2 minutes. Oh, you are muted.
Got it.
Okay.
No question that this is a very important issue that we're facing. And frankly, even if the market stays open, we have continuing food insecurity in this part of the city that is at a significant level. But accepting the premise of the question, if we were to lose the Viva Market, and of course we have a grocery outlet on Del Paso Boulevard, so we do have another brand name, so to speak. But what I would do is what I did working with Lauren Hammond to get a major grocery store, as we did in Oak Park at Stockton and Broadway. I certainly give Lauren the lion's share of the credit for that. She worked tirelessly on it, and I tried to help her as much as I could in bringing that store to Oak Park, which at the time, of course, was also a significant food desert. The other thing that I'm very dedicated to is bringing a farmer's market to our part of the city. We, in fact, most people may not know this, we did have a farmer's market that operated on Saturdays at the Robertson Community Center for a number of years when I was on the Board of Supervisors, but it has gone away over the years. I think we can bring in a farmer's market back, and I've already had conversations with Dan Best, who some of you know is running certified farmers markets for years, including the one under the freeway. So I think that opportunity exists, but I also think we can expand community gardens and local food and ag production within the boundaries of our district as well. So I don't think it's a single approach. I think it's a multi-pronged approach.
Very much. Okay, and it seems that Ms. Ramona has arrived. If you would like to click *6 on your phone, we'll be able to bring you on up with the other panelists. While you're figuring that out, I'm going to turn that over to Ms. Larry. Would you like me to read the question again?
No, I have the question, and it's a very important question, and I appreciate you asking something that is outside of the box so that we can think as a community, what would we do given the circumstances that we find ourselves facing right now? The number one thing I would do, I have this model to not solve a problem you don't have. That's what I say. So I would first like to see if this is a problem, does Mr. Lalohi have an idea that he wants to close the store for whatever reason, and to give us some time to prepare if the store is going to go away so that we could make preparations to do something else. In thinking about, I did think about a few options that if he did close the store, to make lemonade out of a lemon, so to speak. And they are, I think this is an excellent opportunity for our community to step up. We are in a very unique situation. I think that we need unique circumstances, unique solutions. And so this is a good time for us to think outside of the box. I would see if there is another food chain that would be interested in taking over that space, since it's already turnkey. So maybe that's a possibility. Also, maybe the Viva location can be a co-op. This has proved successful in Midtown, and maybe we can have a variety of food vendors or with different cultures and farmers to come in and utilize the space on a permanent basis. That's the thinking outside the box, maybe an inside farmers market that's all year round. And then I would talk to other entities and start having conversations. What do people want to see in the district? A lot of times we make decisions up here without first asking the people. So I would like to engage the community and see what would they want there so that we can offer options for healthy food choices. That's what I would do. I would say, now we have an opportunity to bring in some healthy food options, and then let's do that. Let's not do the same thing that we have been doing before. Let's do something different.
Thank you very much. Ms. Landeros, I see that you have unmuted, and unfortunately it seems that the phone won't let us spotlight you. That said, I'd love to give you the opportunity, the same 90 seconds that the other two candidates had, to introduce yourself. So if you could please do that and discuss your personal and campaign connection to food system issues, that'd be fantastic.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. I think the rest of everybody else can.
Perfect, finally. Okay. Hi, good afternoon or good evening. Thank you so much. I first want to just say thank you for acknowledging our people of the land, the Miwok and the Nisenan, whose land we do stand on, so I appreciate that. I am an Apache Kana. I'm Apache by my dad's side and Chicana on my mother's side. I've been here in Sacramento 43 years, a former school board trustee for Twin Rivers. I'm also the founder of the Benito Juarez Association, which is a civil rights group that helps, that really helps families and the community connect with services that they normally wouldn't have or know how to access, police reports, all the other stuff that come with being an immigrant to this country. We also, my connection to the food, of course, is I was a farm worker. I was a farm worker for 17 years, so I know what it's like to be hungry. I know what it's like to be unhoused. And so to me, I think this is one of the most critical issues is that we have to find a way, how do we feed our community, but also how we have a lot of farm workers in this community. One of the things that we have been doing for the last couple of years is doing a food distribution, and we do it late into the evening because we know many of the families cannot access the food closets the 9 to 4 or during the day. Many of them work in the evening, so we work up until 8 at night. So we feed about 200 families a week. And so that has been one of my connections. But I think more importantly, I would like to see what is it that we can do as a District 2 and our community. And I agree with what Roger said. You know, we've been left behind. We've had some poor leadership, but I think it's time now that someone from our community step up that really knows the issues. I've been here a long time, like I said, and so I have a real connection, but I also have an emotional interest because all my family's here, my tribe lives here, my children, my grandchildren. So I've been here a long time, and I think that it does take strong leadership, but somebody that's inside and that has really seen what the issues that have affected D2 North Sacramento. And I just appreciate you, Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and if you would like to answer the second question also, would you like me to repeat it? It's the question about the Viva Market.
Yes, please repeat.
Sure, yep. It seems possible, but the next city council member for District 2 may face the loss of Viva Market, which would leave Del Paso Heights without a grocery store. Please share how would you address immediate food access needs for local residents and plan to restore or improve food access in the future if Del Paso Heights were to lose their only grocery store. And I know you can't see the timer. These are 2-minute questions. So if you want to either put that in mind, time yourself, and I think a little noise might be going off right at the end of that too, you can listen out for.
Okay, I don't have a timer, so I'll just go ahead and wing it, and then you can just tell me, you know, if I'm getting close. Yes, so losing Viva Supermarket, I think, is a possibility. I will address that issue, though. That I think that the next city council person, we have to be very, very mindful who we let into our community. Because when you see a food desert, when you see a community that is hurting for grocery stores, and you decide you want to come in and exploit it, that's not okay. And I think to have strong leadership in this community, we have to really look at who's coming in and who wants to come and do business with our community, but also be giving us the right foods and the services that we need, and also making sure that we are getting the best quality, because we cannot just because we are desperate for stores does not mean we're going to allow somebody to come in and exploit our community. And so I think that one of the ways that we can do that is, of course, being very mindful, very thoughtful who's coming in, who wants to set up, but also really, really supporting the Hmong community, the Afghan community, which is a new community coming in, the Latino community. How can we get up little markets and support the markets, support the stores that are reflective and representative of the community that we live in? Because as we know, we have a large Afghan population now coming in. The Latinos are probably close to 40%. We have the Hmong community. And so I think that by really utilizing their skills to really have opening stores and supporting those small stores, because we don't, sometimes we don't really need that large supermarket. Yeah, we do have grocery. It would be nice, but I think also this would be an opportunity to give the community that lives here an opportunity to do business and to continue to keep our revenue going, but also help our communities out. And by lifting each other and bringing in the markets that are reflective of the community in which we live. And farmers market is also an amazing way that we can bring fresh farm food to our tables, because we have many, many farm workers that live in our community. We have lots that have sat here empty for 40 years plus that have sat empty. Those are places that could have been community gardens where we can have people sell their own produce to us. Sometimes we don't need outsiders coming in. In fact, it would be best if we could have our own community selling our community vegetables and fruits that are grown locally, organically, and not at the high price that we sometimes get them at stores like, the co-op, because organic does cost more. But I think it makes sense to utilize what we have. Thank you.
You're welcome. We are definitely at time. Thank you so much. And thanks to the three of you for being flexible as we figure out all the questions in the timer and everything. So we have one more question for the three of you. Mr. Dickinson, I'll let you start. Can you share your thoughts about the potential for vacant lots to become community gardens and sites for urban agriculture and small farms to drive food production in District 2?
Well, it's absolutely a viable opportunity. That's what we have done over the years in many places, not just in District 2 and in the greater North Sacramento area, going back to the 90s. I mentioned Bill Maynard, who I can consider the father of community gardens in Sacramento. But we have often looked at vacant spaces as good opportunities. Here in the neighborhood in which I live, we have a community garden. So we have them by some of the schools in District 2. There are a multitude of locations that could be suitable for that purpose. And in some cases, it's actually a very viable transitional use. So in some cases, it may be a community garden for 10 years until something more permanent comes along. But you don't want to lose that opportunity for not just food production, I'd say, but for community engagement. A community garden can be a place of stimulating community participation for including people who otherwise might not engage in other circumstances. I think as we look at the local foods, local places, community action plan. If we follow the prescription that the plan lays out, then obviously community gardens play a critical role in the opportunities we have to accomplish the full breadth of the plan. And I think they can also serve us as a vehicle for making sure that we have the kinds of foods that we need for different communities, whether they're ethnic, racial, or otherwise, places of origin, that we want to make sure that we serve with the kind of food that they need too, which isn't always available commercially.
Thank you so much. Okay, Miss Larry, are you ready? Okay, you are on mute.
Yes, I had to cough early and I put my phone on mute. And so thank you so much. I love this idea of using the vacant land as a community garden for a couple of reasons. One, just for the name itself. It's the opportunity for community to come together. I believe we need to do that in D2. There needs to be opportunities for us to come together just to meet our neighbors and to share ideas. And to bring some music there too. I would love the idea of a community garden. We bring music, we bring culture, and we bring activities. For another reason also is so that people have an opportunity to do something different. Getting them outside of the house, which we have been unable to do, still getting out, still post-COVID, people still having a hard time getting out. And I think we could do that. I would love that we would bring some recipes there. One of the things that we do with, as we partner with the Sacramento Food Bank, there's somebody on their team that brings recipes. And the recipes are specifically for the food that is available. And so everything that you have access to, there's a recipe for that. So people don't have to always think about what it is that they want to cook. And then I would like some cooks to come out there so that we can cook the food that's out there, grow the food, cook the food, and then eat the food as a community. I think it would be a wonderful thing. I think it's outside of the box. I don't know too many community gardens that do that, but D2 needs to do something different. We are at a deficit in many areas, and in order for us to be better, we have to do better and think better. And that's the kind of leadership that I want to bring here. It's just to think outside the box. It hasn't been done before. Let us try it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Landeros, it is your turn.
It's Landeros. Yes, it's Landeros. Thank you. So yeah, like I mentioned earlier, there's many lots, there's potential that have the potential to be community gardens that have sat empty for over 40 years. Okay, 40 years. That's 4 decades of poor leadership that we could have been doing something with that. I know that there's many families that have also large yards that could utilize some of that. But if we had a community, a farmer's market where we could come and bring some of what we've grown, that would give pride, that you take pride in being part of a solution. Because we have to look at it as what are we doing to help solve this by engaging the community, having them display the fruits of their labor. That would be one way that we could really feel like we're part of the solution. You know, there's some apartment complexes, so they don't have garden space, but some of those apartments, and we have many in North Sacramento, they have empty lots. Those lots are filled with nothing but clutter and garbage. Those lots could have easily worked for both apartments because sometimes there's an empty lot sandwiched in between 2 apartments. Having a community engaged there, it doesn't have to be at every corner lot, but I think looking at apartments and having those empty lots, which we know that there's a lot of, that could be a source of pride. People would be more apt to be more community oriented, come out and, like Ms. Penelope said, come out and engage with each other. But not just that, but also having some of our community members who maybe who have empty space, big lots in their gardens, you know, that would also be part of that. But I think also we have to look at zoning, and as a city council member, we have to make sure that we're pushing for the right zoning to create these gardens. And that's one of the ways that I would tackle it, absolutely, as a council member, is making sure that the zoning is correct. And then also providing stipends for communities, providing those stipends to help them get the tools they need. Because if you live in an apartment, chances are you're not going to have the gardening tools to use for a garden. So those are some of the ideas that I would utilize. But certainly looking at those empty lots that have sat there for over 40 years, and predominantly in the poorer side of town. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Great. Well, I want to thank all three of you tonight for joining us and introducing yourself to us and answering these very specific food and farm questions for your district. We're glad to get to have the opportunity to know all three of you better. You're welcome to stick around and hear the rest of the forum if you'd like. Otherwise, hopefully we'll see you around Sacramento.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Adrian. Okay, Miss Katie Valenzuela, we are so glad to see you here today. I want to introduce you, but that is terrible. I'm going to let you do that for yourself, and I'm going to give you the same 90 seconds I gave the other candidates. Let's see here, minute and 30. Here we go. So within that 90 seconds, if you could please introduce yourself and your personal and campaign connection to food system issues.
Yes, and thank you all so much for having me here tonight. My name is Katie Valenzuela. I've had the honor of representing District 4 since 2020, and I'm running for re-election. So really excited to be here today, and particularly excited because I've been working with some of you on this call for more than 10 years. When we started the Sacramento Urban Agriculture Coalition, I was building gardens in North Sacramento and District 2 and in South Sacramento, and we were really using those gardens to build community, to teach people not just how to grow food, but how to advocate for themselves, for their neighbors, and really using that to create not just the urban agriculture ordinances that passed, but actually create physical spaces and communities, including on Marysville Boulevard and in other parts of town that are still in existence today. So I have been proud to continue working on those food issues as a council member. So I will leave some of that for your question. I know I'm way under 90 seconds, but I have so much more to say, but I don't want to preempt your question, so I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you so much for that introduction. Yeah, let's just get on started. So, with many downtown office workers now working remotely and commercial rent remaining high, what policies could be adopted to ensure food businesses in downtown Sacramento not only remain viable, but to thrive? And I'm going to set the clock to 2 minutes. Here we go.
Great. Yeah, the biggest thing that we need to do downtown is increase housing. When you look at what happened downtown and what's still happening to businesses downtown is they don't have the type of foot traffic that they need to sustain their model. And frankly, even before COVID, I've worked downtown for years. Some of you may have as well. And I will never forget those days when the state holidays don't fall on a day when you also have off and everything was closed, because without the state workers downtown, nobody could be open. So I think increasing housing downtown is really important, but there's also some proactive tools we've been developing at the city to keep food businesses open and to make more businesses open their doors that have been closed. A great example is the R Street Market on our street that shut down after COVID. It was run by Rayleigh's. So we had been approaching different grocery providers, but it's hard to open. It's a big risk to take to do that when the housing hasn't all been built yet and the state workers are still coming back. So we have talked about sales tax reductions, property tax rebates. Really what I want to do is create a program similar to what we did with Rancho San Miguel in Oak Park, which is a co-op grocery store. The city loaned that money to the grocery store, I think at zero interest, so that they could pay that back and use that to cover their startup expenses. But there are really great models in other cities across the country where they do like an ongoing sales tax reduction, right? Like if you're offering healthy food for sale, a certain amount of your floor space is uncut produce, that you get a sales tax reduction, because we want to keep you open. And the profit margins on these grocery stores are so slim that that little bit, even just 1 or 2% or 3%, can really help people stay open for the long run. So we've been using all of those tools to try to attract and keep businesses downtown. And we're actually looking at creating a grocery store zone, which would be a layer on top of our commercial zones that we could have citywide as part of our environmental justice element in the general plan. So really excited about all of those things. And I know a lot of you on this call have been involved in that too. So excited to be working with you on that.
Thank you. Okay, so you mentioned the urban ag ordinance earlier in your introduction. My next question is about that. It has been 9 years since the city passed the urban agriculture ordinance and 6 years since its last significant amendment. Discussion has been growing amongst stakeholders in our local food system about the need for urban ag 2.0, with a public committee formed to identify key policies to address current challenges and expand urban food production. Can you please share your thoughts about such an effort and whether you would support convening this work in 2025?
Yeah, I love the idea of convening a working group. It has been a long time since those ordinances passed. There have been a lot of lessons learned that we should be incorporating into our code as we move forward. And I think this is a great moment in time to consider that. I was recently at UC Davis. There was like a policy seminar series that graduate students were taking, and they were presenting their ideas. And they had some really cool ideas as well about like making a requirement for certain size developments to include community gardens in their development. So that's now a requirement. If you have over a certain number of units or over a certain size, you have to build a community garden on site. It's not an exception, it's the rule. And other strategies that just were really exciting that I would love to get input on. I've really been following the lead of Councilmember Vang and Vice Mayor Maple, as I know they've convened a healthy food task force, and I've told them I'm super eager, but I'm going to let you, like, you all have the space. So I'll stay over here and hear what you have to say. But I know there's a lot of really wonderful ideas, but I will say that none of this really works without the resources, the investment in urban ag spaces. It is really expensive to stand these sites up. Just water access alone can be $10,000. And so we've got to find a way to create, whether it's a one-time pot of money or an external funder who is ready, available to make these small mini grants so that we can stand up more spaces. But we need to figure out the resources question of how do we sustain and not just create, but sustain these urban agriculture spaces, these small farms, so that if there is a need for capital improvements on site, especially on these older sites that have been vacant for a long time, that there are resources available through a funding partner, through the city or through the county even, that we could pull down for that one-time use to increase food access and create really thriving green spaces.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go back to another question that I had asked District 2 before. It's still very relevant in your district. And that is, if you could please share your thoughts about the potential for vacant lots to become community gardens and sites for urban ag and small farms to drive food production in and around downtown.
Yes, we unfortunately don't have a ton of vacant property in District 4. I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, depends on how you look at it. So the opportunity sites for community gardens are really rare. And we have unfortunately been losing sites as development happens, as funding runs out, as volunteers wear out. Again, I come back to this idea of investment and how do we make sure that there's support for folks, not just through individual staff like Bill Maynard, who is still working, Roger, at the city, believe it or not, and running that program, but also just through those one-time investments. A great example in my neighborhood is the New Era Garden that's existed on 26th Street, not a city-run parcel for years. It's become a thriving community space, and they just can't sustain it any longer, and the property owner is looking to sell. So there are opportunities like that where we could be jumping in and helping preserve those few open spaces we have that are open for gardening. But again, I come back to this idea that I cannot take credit for, because it was definitely a UC Davis student that came up with it, of like, how do we push our developers to start planning for incorporating not just the big parks and green spaces that the city maintains, but these small garden areas, you know, the Fremont Garden, the Southside Park Garden, that many people fought for when those development projects happen, should be the standard and not the exception, so that we can be intentionally preserving space in our new development communities for those communities that have access to community garden space as well. So definitely not a ton of vacant lot potential in my district, because it's really creative. I think rooftop gardening too is something that comes up a lot. And then we have a ton of questions about how do you measure that? How do you monitor that? Are the roofs stable enough to handle that much soil and water? But I think there's a lot of creativity, again, through a working group, that we could probably come up with some policy and some investment opportunities to make them work.
Thank you. That's awesome. Okay, let's get this going. I'm going to ask you another district specific question. We've got time for this last one. While the River District is set to boom in population, current residents experience extreme food inaccessibility due to their geographic isolation from the rest of the city and limited safe and accessible transportation options. What policies could help to ensure residents in this district have access to grocery stores, fresh produce, and local food?
Well, I think first off, getting that light rail station built is a huge win. And so many thanks to Alchemist and many of the folks that I know were very active in advocating to get that light rail station built. So residents had better access north and south of them to opportunities. But I mean, again, this comes back to our responsibility as a city. How do we plan for food access? Planning has historically been super passive, which tends to like reinforce these really bad legacies of certain communities having and certain communities not having. And River District is such an interesting opportunity, just like the rail yards, to really design from the beginning. And so really exciting projects like Alchemist Public Market, the community garden on site at Marisol Village are great starts, but we don't plan for grocery stores. And when we zone, we plan for commercial, and that's it. And so what would it look like to create a zone for grocery stores, to put incentives in that zone to actually save space in those commercially zoned parcels so that a grocery store can't exist? Because that is an issue, especially one we've seen in places like District 2, where those size places get gobbled up by people cultivating cannabis or doing other things. Like, we need to actually have the physical space available for a grocery store to thrive, and that has to be complemented by whether it's a sales tax incentive or other policy measure to ensure that we can keep that store sustainable while they build their customer base and really create a sustainable model that they can preserve, hopefully for the long run. And so that's the, I mean, there's specific things in River District, but that's something that I'm really concerned by. And we're doing a specific plan right now for the River District that I know folks are engaging in. And that's my big question. We have all these residential housing coming in, great, all the state worker building coming in, which is amazing, new transportation projects, new open space, but where will they get their food needs to be a part of our plan from the beginning, and that needs to be complemented with implementation that's much more intentional than planning usually is.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I really appreciate it. And you kind of coming back to your roots here at Sac Food Policy Council with us.
Yes, it's so good to see you all. Thanks for having me.
Okay, and with that, it's just about time for us to transition into our next district. Hello, Casey Schuft. Did I say that right?
It's Schuft, but that's okay.
Okay, no, thank you for correcting me.
I get a lot of different pronunciations, as I'm sure you can imagine.
I bet. Okay, so we're gonna follow the same pattern. And I'm gonna set this clock here to 1:30 for you to be able to introduce yourself and your personal campaign connection to the food system issues, please.
All right. Well, hello. My name is Casey Schuft. I am a longtime resident of Sacramento. I've been here 23 years. I'm a NorCal native, originally from Redding. Grew up with our own gardens at my house, and my parents were very big on the home garden situation, growing our vegetables. Let's see. I am running for City Council, District 6. I am new to the Sac Food Policy Council. To be quite honest, I didn't even know it existed until I was invited to this forum. So thank you all so much. And I'm so happy to know that there is a Sac Food Policy Council in Sacramento. I think it's a very important topic, and food scarcity, and just the inequality of where grocery stores are located, and community gardens, all of those things. So I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. It's our pleasure to have you too, and so glad that we're becoming acquainted.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll try and do this at the same time as the timers. We'll see how it goes. There it is. So, according to the USDA Food Access Research Atlas, certain areas of Southern District 6 have significant numbers of households that lack vehicles and are more than a half mile from the nearest grocery store. What would you do as District 6 council member to help ensure all of these residents have access to groceries?
That's a great question. In fact, I live in Colonial Heights, which is also considered a food desert of sorts. We do have a couple of discount groceries, and then we have the grocery store that's located at the corner of Broadway and Stockton. But in the grand scheme of things, we are considered to be somewhat of a food desert as well. And, I think there are a lot of different ways to coordinate the effort. I think tax incentives offered to grocery stores built within, low income, low access areas help bring food solutions into the communities that need them most. RT, public transit, maybe some increased funding to allow residents to more easily access food options that aren't within walking distance. And then, of course, it comes to the urban farming. Government-sponsored gardens would be great. Initiatives to bring food production to low-income communities. And, nutrition is obviously often lacking in those areas. So I think those are definitely some good ways to start, from a city council perspective. And I guess I've got 30 seconds more.
No pressure to use them. They're just there for you.
Okay. All right.
Okay, well, thank you. So our next question is, roughly 40% of Sacramento State students face food insecurity. And with the end of pandemic era rules, many college students have recently lost CalFresh eligibility. What role do you think the city can play in addressing food insecurity among these students?
That, again, is a great question. I had no idea that that was even a topic that was happening. Number one, that food scarcity was happening within our college population, or that CalFresh benefits from the pandemic had ended. I kind of did a little bit of research on this, and it seems that there seems to be somewhat of a stigma about this with college students not really talking about it, which I found surprising, which makes sense that it's not maybe as well known. But then college is also very expensive, and we've got books and tuition. So I put myself through college, and I worked at a grocery store during that time in Chico. And being that this is a new topic, I kind of was thinking maybe, food pantries might be good, with the option to not that, to allow access to anyone, and they don't need to prove that they need it, so that we can, avoid that stigma. Cultural diversity, ensure food items that are, available for every cultural background of the student population on campus. Fresh produce, obviously, health options whenever possible, limit, processed food items that are high in sodium. And then access to assistance programs and resources. That seems like a no-brainer to me. I would like to think that City Council would be able to help with that, just like with the Promise program, with our local colleges, help with books and that kind of thing. So food seems like a no-brainer to me, that we should be able to help our students who are improving themselves with higher education.
Great, thank you so much. Now I'm going to go back to the same question I asked the other two district candidates, and that is if you could please share your thoughts about the potential for vacant lots to become community gardens and sites for urban ag and small farms to drive food protection in your district.
I am 100% behind that. And if you have driven anywhere in D6, you will see there are lots of vacant lots. I would love for this to be an option to have community gardens. In my neighborhood, someone actually bought the lot next door to them and made it into a community garden that multiple people in our neighborhood are actually able to use. And that, also brings a sense of community that people, say they live in an apartment, they can come and use that community garden. I would love to be able to be a part of that as a council member, to be able to provide that space for people to be able to grow their own food. And again, these just seem like no-brainers to me. Of course, D4, like Katie said, there's not as much space there potentially to be able to use that land for that purpose. But in District 6, we have plenty of vacant lots, vacant buildings, and I would love, at the very least, it helps beautify the area.
Absolutely. It sounds like a good opportunity perhaps for some district crossover and being able to share some of those resources.
Sure, absolutely.
So I've got one last question for you tonight, and that is, what role, if any, do you think the city should play in ensuring that all citizens in the farm to fork capital go to bed well fed?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. What role, if any, do you think the city should play in ensuring that all citizens in the farm to fork capital go to bed well fed?
Oh, wow. That's a big question. I don't know if I feel fully equipped to answer that just as a citizen of Sacramento. I think I have grand ideas that I think there are so many options that City Council could do to help with that. I feel very uneducated as far as what those potential options might be, considering I have never run for anything in my life. This is my first time, and I'm taking in a lot of information over the last several months with regard to our city and our capabilities, and especially financially right now for the coming year. But I would hope that as a city council member, I would be able to play a positive role in that, and that people don't go to bed hungry.
Great. Thank you so much. That is the last of my prepared questions that I have. I don't have any from the chat at the moment. Let's give it 1 minute and see if participants, if you wanted to put anything in the question and answer section. Okay, well, if that changes, I'll let you know and connect you with those people. Thank you so much for joining us today, and good luck.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, Adrian, if you could please bring us back to the PowerPoint, I'd appreciate it. Fantastic. Okay, we'll take a little intermission here for a couple of minutes as our team prepares and gets all of our mayoral candidates onto the screen. We have a few minutes in between before we start this session.
How's it going?
Okay, or just at that time, Adrian and Sam, can you please help spotlight the candidates?
Just as a forewarning, between the dogs and the children, there may be special guests appearing.
Excellent.
Yeah, they're all very curious about what Daddy does.
Yes, I understand. Often I have a cat walking across the screen myself, so. Okay, are we missing a couple candidates still?
I believe we're missing Pan and McCarty.
Yeah,
Dr. Pan's here.
Oh,
He's saying that he can't unmute or turn on video, and it's also not allowing me to spotlight. I don't know, Adrian.
Yeah, you can't spotlight a non-video participant.
Yeah, I don't have any options available to me.
Dr. Pan, are you able to log off and log back on? And McCarty is still not here either, is that correct, Adrian and Sam?
Not yet.
Okay.
Do you think folks can probably get started with opening statements so we maximize our time?
Sounds good to me. Okay, so everybody, we're gonna do it more or less the same way. In case you haven't been here for the last couple of sessions, I'll briefly go over how we're conducting ourselves. We're gonna go in alphabetical order by last name. So, Mr. Avina, we will go first, followed by Ms. Kofer and then Mr. Hansen for the three of you that are here at the moment. We're gonna do 90-minute introductions and then 2-minute questions. Because there are the three of you and potentially another fourth and fifth that I'm hoping will join us, we are going to be serious on the timer. We'll allow you to go 5 seconds over and then our technological team will mute you. So please, have you seen the little timer on my screen? I want to do a little demo right here now for you all. Okay, perfect, great. Okay, so Mr. Avina, I will let you start. Specifically, if you could please introduce yourself and your personal and campaign connection to food system issues.
good evening, Sacramento. My name is Jose Antonio Avina II, and I am running for mayor of Sacramento. One of the things that I most take pride in downtown Sacramento is involving myself as closely to the farmers market here. I am a huge advocate for Farm to Fork in terms of supporting our local farmers. One of the things I always try to put on is a fit for a cause, and fit for a cause takes 2 parts. One, we're getting healthy, we're thinking about our body and our mind, but 2 is where do we think about where we get our food? And the fastest way for us to get the freshest produce is literally about 30 feet away. So one of the things I try to educate our new members coming into Sacramento are some of the various things that Sacramento has to offer. And that's just not just the activities that you can partake in, but also the freshness of the food that you can get literally within a moment's walk away. One of the other things I bring to this table is a new style of leadership. I am not a politician. I'm an individual who is concerned with the state of our community, and I am actively trying to take my part in trying to make a difference. I bring with me new ideas, different perspectives, and a fresh, innovative solution to different problems that haven't been thought of before. And I hope that you take this opportunity to listen to what we have to say and some of the bright ideas that we bring to the table. And I thank you for joining us today. Thank you for having me as well.
Thank you so much. We're glad to have you here. Mr. McCarty, I'm glad to see you that you've joined us. Welcome. Just in case you haven't been here the whole time, we're doing 90-second introductions, and then we will transition to 2-minute questions. We'll have 5 seconds for you to go over that 2 minutes if that happens before our technological moderators mute the screen. So we're going in alphabetical order. I'm going to let Ms. Kofer go ahead and introduce herself.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Flo Kofer, and I am running for mayor of Sacramento. And I'm a public health professional, an epidemiologist, in fact. And so my connection to this is I'm a member of the California Food and Farm Network, and I also work for Public Health Advocates in my day job. And we are the organization that's responsible for the calorie labels that you see every time you go to a restaurant when you're trying to inform your food choices. We've worked in all aspects of the food system, everything from healthy retail to making sure that consumers are well informed, to also making sure we have culturally responsive ways of being able to eat and affordability. And so I am really excited to be here with you this evening talking about food issues, in particular because we understand the importance of it. And I currently have the pleasure of serving as the technical assistance provider for the county for our community health improvement plan, which is one of the requirements for accreditation. And one of the goals there is to address food insecurity. And so we're working right here in Sacramento in the area known as the Finger, which happens to be the census tract with the lowest healthy places index score, meaning that needing the most assistance. And so we're working on a food action plan for the entire county. And I'm really excited about talking more about the importance of food because it's cultural, it's personal, and it's also a key element of our health. And our city has a responsibility to be a strong partner. And as your next mayor, that's what I plan to bring to the table.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Hansen, if you can please introduce yourself and share about your personal and campaign connection to food.
Well, good evening, everybody. I realized after my mom died last year that the first restaurant I probably ate at was a soup kitchen, and it was on land. This was the revelation I knew about that, but that it was been donated by my great-grandfather to Catholic Charities, the land that was on. And as a kid, after my parents divorced, we got government cheese. We're on WIC. We didn't have access to great fresh food. And there was also cultural changes going on at that time where, my mom, she'd leave and she'd leave a 2-liter bottle of soda in the fridge for me to drink when I got home from school. That had a big impact on my life in positive and negative ways. And so as I've grown up, I've always felt food security was an important thing. And then you see my grandparents' generation who had victory gardens. And, my dad used to try to grow tomatoes and all of that. He wasn't particularly good at it, but I always try to figure out how to make that work. So when I was on the city council, I made food access a top priority. I helped pass the urban ag ordinance, which legalized our urban farms, community gardens, and farm stands, working with this food policy council. Did a lot of other interesting, exciting things, like working on the central kitchen with the Sacramento school district so that our kids could have healthy things to eat. And then working with the Food Literacy Center to create the urban farm at Leotata Floyd, and the teaching kitchen there. So our kids always knew where their food came from and how to eat healthy. So I'm pleased to be here and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. McCarty, if you could please introduce yourself and your personal campaign connection to food system issues.
Yes, thank you. Sorry I was late. I have 2 teenage kids and one of them had a cheerleading accident. So she messed up finger off to the urgent care. So just juggling right now. So yeah, life goes on. But anyway, I'm excited to be here tonight to talk about my campaign for mayor and food policy. So just briefly about my campaign for mayor. I'm a lifelong Sacramento, grew up here, like Mr. Hansen, benefited from public programs. I remember having the stigma of having the free lunch, stickers. And so one of the great things I'm excited about is as a legislator, I made free lunches available to all kids in California. So food policy is so important for so many ways. It's economic development, especially for entrepreneurs, focusing on issues like climate, but also on food insecurity. And so as a city council member, early in the 2000s, I led on some of the first community gardens opening in our district. When it's super crazy to come up with an idea like legalizing urban chickens, I authored the ordinance on that. I've been focusing on composting, both in the city council and at the state level. And, you know, I'm working on these issues with our partners. Most importantly, I know it's an important issue, and I want to work with our partners like you and see what the city is lacking to move forward in this space. So look forward to the conversations to come. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm glad to hear that Dr. Pan is joining by phone. If you could please click *6 to unmute yourself, you should be able to speak for us to hear it.
Oh, gee. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear
hear
me? Oh, you can? Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I apologize. I don't know what happened with Zoom, but so again, I'm Dr. Richard Pan. I'm thrilled to be running for mayor. As a physician public health expert, I've spent my life working to solve tough problems and improve the lives of my patients and community. You know, I first ran for office because I saw the needed type of leadership and problem solving that wasn't driven by politics or political agendas, but to create practical solutions rooted in facts. So what have I done around food? Well, even before I got into elected office, I worked with Sacramento City elementary schools to educate them about students about nutrition. And we had our nutrition decathlon where we celebrated good nutrition. As a legislator, we did the Million Meal Summer where we built a coalition of people to be sure we got meals to kids during the summer. Also was recognized by No Kid Hungry for this work. I partnered with Alchemists in authoring SB 907 to be sure we got EBT for farmers markets. In addition to that, I was thrilled. I also worked to be sure that after decades, frankly, that people on disability, SSIS, would actually be able to qualify and enroll in CalFresh. And then during the pandemic, I worked to stand up and fund Family Meals Sacramento to ensure that both our local restaurants and local farmers were able to get funding to actually provide food for people who are hungry. So those are just a few of the things I've done in the space of nutrition and addressing hunger. And again, I look forward to your future questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pan. Okay, so now we're going to move into our 2-minute question round. We're going to continue with the same order that we've been going in, at least for this next question. So currently, 1 in 5 Sacramentans are at risk of hunger. Inflation has driven grocery costs high, while CalFresh and EBT benefits have been cut. Demand for food-related and other support services is as high as it has been during the peak of pandemic, but without pandemic-era resources. The burden of meeting that need has fallen on the Emergency Food Network, which does not receive funding from the city or county to support its food distribution efforts. Considering the alarming rise in food nutrition and insecurity, how do you envision prioritizing policies or budget measures to make resources available to food banks and hunger relief organizations? And how will you ensure that these resources have the greatest impact in our community's efforts to ensure all people have access to fresh, culturally appropriate, and nurturing foods? Mr. Avina, I'll let you start.
This is a phenomenal question because there are multiple different issues that we've been talking about this entire mayoral campaign. And one of it is affordable housing and the infrastructure. And yes, of course, this has a major part in it because if we think about infrastructure, we need to think about the policies that we have in place right now that are preventing us from being able to establish small grocery stores who are outfitted with all the things you need that are within at least a half-a-mile radius. Studies show that in order for us to be able to feed the population, we need to have access to affordable food, but fresh produce as well within a half-mile block. So looking at the current policies and when we're looking at affordable housing and ensuring that we're not putting these housing development areas in locations that now become food deserts, and ensuring that when we're putting our money into the infrastructure plan, that we're putting the requirement on the developer as well to think of these other things that need to go into facilitating a healthy lifestyle. One of the problems that I see right now is access to fresh produce. One of the programs that I like is Not Impossible that's currently being taken place in Seattle. And they work with local farmers and local restaurant owners and they create a menu for the month. And what allows them to do is reduce their CO2 consumption as well as production, and allow them to actually make sure that they're producing the right amount of produce to get those fresh ingredients to those family households every single day. And so that program in itself allows the homeowners or the families to now produce a fresh meal, and it allows the farmers to also anticipate how much they need to produce of a certain item while reducing the food waste. Because we all know that 30% of the food manufactured actually goes into waste and transportation. So it helps alleviate some of the other problems we have going on. So looking at one of the issues, but solving 5 different problems at the same time is how we need to tackle this situation.
Thank you. And for the rest of the candidates, the question is in the chat if you need a refresher. Ms. Koper, I'll let you go ahead.
So one of the things we understand about making sure that we have food access for everyone is that we have to start with where are people getting food and is it affordable? And so one of the many things that have been, started in this region that we certainly need to expand upon are our urban gardens, because they are a way for us to be able to help to fulfill some of the need at our food banks. We also had recent state legislation that allowed us to do food recovery and wanting to make sure that we're doing that well here in this region. And I think the city can be a key partner that happens. But beyond that, when I first became the chair of the Measure U Community Advisory Committee, I actually sat down with the head of our Sacramento Food Bank, and we were talking specifically about some of the ways that they could have potentially been eligible for Measure U funds to be able to help to address this, because the food insecurity goes right along with housing and homelessness. And those were some of the items that Measure U was promised for us to spend on. We were going to have an additional $70 million. And our community was really excited about what we could do to be able to address some of our major challenges. And unfortunately, those dollars were not spent to address some of those challenges. And so I think that opportunity still exists for us to be able to say, what are the ways that we're able to ensure that people have access to food on a regular basis? Another thing that I think is incredibly important is also for us to be able to take advantage of the regional partnerships that we have here. Right now, we're in the process of starting Aggie Square after a protracted, conversation with the community about that. One of the things that we certainly need to be investing in is better understanding how we can support our food system. Everyone from our farm workers to ways that we can expand on our crops, making sure we're getting good yields and making sure that they're available to everyone throughout this region. And so I think Sacramento has a real opportunity to both do economic development as well as make sure we're addressing the major need in this region, which in addition to housing is of course hunger.
Great, thank you so much. Will we set the clock for you, Mr. Hanson?
Well, food insecurity certainly cuts across so many demographics. If you look back at the work that I did, I think it's almost 10 years ago, I partnered with Alchemist actually to bring Market Match first to our downtown farmers market. And what we found, one was a lot of people who lived in the area weren't using their benefits, their EBT benefits at the farmers markets. And by subsidizing Market Match and bringing in funding partners, we then grew it to the Midtown market, what used to be a Roosevelt Park market, and I believe under the freeway, is we were able to help people who didn't have access to fresh fruit and vegetables because of the food deserts or access to resources. And they then were able to access food from our farmers, and the uptake was really incredible. We had mailed to all the people within 6 blocks, and we saw a mutual benefit between the farmers and access to fresh fruits and vegetables for people that otherwise didn't have it. So I think expanding Market Match and continuing to leverage these private public partnerships is one foundational piece. I mentioned our urban agriculture ordinance, which allowed for urban farm stands as well and legalize those. I think we have to figure out whether or not there are opportunities to create more community gardens for people who want to grow their own food. But from a food bank standpoint, between the providers that are serving some of the medically indigent, there's new access through state programs to medically supported nutrition. And those are laws that me and my team have worked on creating so that people who are at risk physically and from a health standpoint can access new food options to improve their life. So I think there's a variety of things. I lost the timer. It doesn't show up anymore, Kristen, when you went off video. So I think with the city budget too, we just have to look to maximize all these different partnerships and build on the good work of Alchemist, the Food Policy Council, and so many others.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. This is Adrian just stepping in for Kristen. So Mr. McCarty, over to you. The question is in the chat if you need to reference it. And I'm going to hit a stop, my own stopwatch. Okay. I'll tell you when you got 30 seconds left.
Yeah, so clearly this is an issue that we need to work on with food security, the statistic of 1 in 5. And we know that, kids are living in poverty at great numbers here in Sacramento. But we need to be realistic. It's not an issue the city of Sacramento historically has or can step up and provide support for, even more so with a looming $50 million deficit in our budget. So even more, we need to make sure we partner with other nonprofits and state agencies to draw down resources. As your current assembly member, I've delivered time and time again for food projects just with the Alchemist and the Oak Park Garden. I helped draw down $500,000 2 years ago for the entrepreneur market over there on Richards Boulevard. So what I will do as mayor is work with our partners, work with the governor, our next governor, our legislative partners to be able to draw resources, not just earmarks in the budget, because those are potentially going away as well with the state challenges. But what does that mean? That means, looking for state grant opportunities. I'm always scouring the earth, looking for ways how we can draw resources to Sacramento. So it is a priority. I just want to be honest. It's probably not going to be a priority in our general fund budget. We know that 80+% of our discretionary general fund budget goes to, police and fire. A little bit more goes to our parks. And so parks certainly have a piece of that with, supporting our urban gardens, as Dr. Flo said earlier, which is a top priority of mine. But we need to have somebody who's resourceful and nimble to go and draw down resources from our federal and state partners. And certainly I think I'm capable of that, have proven to doing just that. And more importantly, like I'll say over and over again, willing to partner with groups like you to point us in the right direction where we should be going.
Thank you. I think that was exactly 2 minutes. I'm so sorry to have dropped off at a critical time. Hey, I think Dr. Pan, it's your turn now.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you. I agree. It takes someone who's nimble, who knows how to draw down the money. I think the mayor, while this issue may not be something that's directly addressed through the city budget, given constraints on the city budget, however, can take moral leadership. And this is something, addressing hunger and good nutrition is something I've done throughout my career, whether I was in elected office or not. So when we talk about, the risk of hunger and the role of, and the impact it's having on our communities, first of all, we do need to strengthen our food infrastructure when it comes to our food banks and other supports. And I've actually worked with our food banks to figure out how we could actually increase both contributions, whether it's food itself, especially healthy food, and also financial. But that's sort of our last safety net. And certainly that should not, the entire burden should not be falling on our food banks. And that's why I've also worked to be sure we draw, maximize drawing down money from things like CalFresh and WIC. No one's mentioned WIC, right? That's for kids. And so, in fact, I helped establish a store in Oak Park area that was particularly focused on people who were on WIC and food stamps or CalFresh to be sure that they had access, in one of those food deserts, right? So it was actually designed for folks and sustainable from those customers. And then, of course, the work that was been done by many of the people here in terms of our urban agriculture, community gardens, and so forth. And then, of course, we want to be sure people can access fresh food produce at our farmers markets. That's why I partnered with Alchemist on the bill as well. And then, of course, trying to expand the number of people we have enrolled. I realize you say, it's been declining, but still CalFresh is a foundational program. That's why I ensured that our seniors and other people who haven't been before gotten qualified couldn't get.
Thank you, Dr. Pan. We just went slightly over, so we've stopped. We'll put the mute on. We have time for one more question for the three of you. I'm very interested and excited to hear all of your answers. So shifting from immediate food security and food access issues, we would like to hear your thoughts on more proactive and forward-thinking policies around the ways the community can have agency over the local food system. For instance, community-run grocery stores, urban agriculture, community gardens, small local food businesses, food markets, etc. And for this last question, we're going to reverse the order. And Dr. Pan, if you would start us off, please.
And Dr. Pan, remember to hit *6 to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? All right. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you. And again, really appreciate this question. It really is about the ecosystem, right? And how do we ensure that different parts are supporting each other? So as I said, during COVID, I worked with our local restaurants and farmers to be sure we got food for people while also sustaining our restaurants who, because of public health measures could not operate, and also the local farms that actually depended on their purchases to ensure, to sustain their farms, right? We have to figure out how to sustain that ecosystem. In terms of community-run grocery stores, again, work to bring grocery stores. We also want to support our local grocery businesses. Unfortunately, sometimes many of them struggle to provide good nutrition at their stores and tend to lean more toward processed foods and other things that store longer. Well, we've got to work with them as well. And then, of course, we've got to work with the not-for-profits here who are promoting urban agriculture, our food banks. So it is about building out this ecosystem and looking at the different funding streams, federal as well as state. And I'm glad as your state legislator have actually prioritized getting resources for our food banks. No one should go hungry here in Sacramento. We're the farm to fork capital. We should be the farm to every fork capital. And as a board member of United Way, I also worked, made getting food to kids in particular a priority for United Way as we try to end generational poverty. So it's that kind of leadership that we need to address these issues, and that's what I'll bring as mayor as well. I'll continue that work as mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Mr. McCarty, I'm going to start the timer for you.
Okay, well, you will have an ally in the mayor's office as mayor of Sacramento to lean in on food policy. And again, I'm all in on this, but more importantly, this is a ground up. I'm going to work with partners like you to see where we're lacking. Like on issues like zoning, I think we've gotten rid of a lot of the barriers to allow zoning with urban ag, with grocery stores, community efforts. It's the details, it's the planning, it's the permitting for some of these issues. And so, what I want to do is help remove barriers to make those to make that a reality. In the legislature, I voted on bills to legalize, food vendors, the tamaleras and the paleteros, were literally being harassed by, law enforcement across the state, not so much here in California, but in Sacramento, excuse me, but we did have examples. And so, I think that we can have robust food entrepreneurs out there in our communities, and community members like it. It really uplifts, the diversity of the food, palette in Sacramento and our neighborhoods. And I want to make sure that we embrace and support that. I love some of the ideas like the Hispanic Chamber promoting out there on Northgate, the Taco Plaza, have taco competitions across, some of our commercial quarters like Northgate and down on Franklin. I want to make sure I can support and uplift those. Lastly, I think one of the things that we learned during the pandemic is that people like to eat outside. In Sacramento, albeit today is not a great day, but usually we have great weather year round to eat outdoors. And we have too many barriers for restaurateurs to do that. Some of the fancier restaurants in downtown and midtown can afford, $10,000 on the permits and the building supplies. So I want to remove barriers so we can have more al fresco dining throughout Sacramento. I wrote the law this past year to remove state law barriers like the ABC, but I think the city of Sacramento could do much more as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Hanson, just return.
Yeah, thank you so much. the work I've talked about is only a piece of my food policy vision, but ultimately we are part of a region that is one of the most bountiful regions on the entire planet. We have water, which a lot of places don't have, and we want to be responsible with that. But we have all these entrepreneurs who are growing and selling the freshest produce in the world, the most amazing things, and our community should have access to that. And I think one of the challenges we face is a lot of times we look at these questions in isolation. The city has a little bit of a role, so we need to play that. But in the past, I mentioned Market Match and the Central Kitchen. I've partnered across boundaries, invisible and visible boundaries, going to the legislature to advocate, even against the League of Cities when they tried to prevent Bill Ting's bill from being passed that upzoned properties to be allowed to be used for urban ag. So I think we have to continue to look at what can we do with our school districts to make sure our kids don't go hungry? What can we do with the County Board of Education and Los Rios? And also with the county to make sure that the other cities or counties in our region, that we're thinking holistically between the rural and the urban and how we can partner. Opening up markets for people to be able to sell is a great thing. But if there's excess or extra food that would otherwise go to waste, how can we efficiently get it in? The gleaning programs, they're largely run by volunteers, but are there ways to provide liability coverage to help gleaning become a better source of fresh fruit, for instance? What are the other forums we need to create to match people who have a hunger need, seniors, people who otherwise have disabilities, or are just don't have enough resources to that food? And I think that's where innovation comes in. And I think creating platforms for innovation across government is a really viable way to maximize how we feed people, but also how we create a bottom line economically for our region.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Flo, it's all you.
This question makes me so excited because innovation is the thing that I think Sacramento can do so well. And one of the things that we really have a vision for is making sure that every community has a rich food environment. And so one of the things we can do is there's a big focus, when it comes to the environment on greenscaping, right? Making sure that the landscaping we have is actually really green and is really supportive of our environment. But one of the things we can do beyond just doing drought tolerant landscaping is encouraging people to grow food in those spaces, including our public spaces. And I'm really excited about, again, a community where 30,000 people show up on Thanksgiving morning to support the food bank by doing Run to Feed the Hungry, and all the ways that we can turn that energy into what we do on a regular basis throughout this city, and planting those gardens and harvesting that food and really being a part of our food system, and the way that we can engage our schools. I'm endorsed by Sac City Teachers Association, and so I am SEIU 1021, and so all of the folks working within the schools just really being able to harness that power. Again, I'd also like to really make sure that every single community in Sacramento has a grocery store where they can access healthy food, because we understand food deserts are a real challenge. And those grocery stores can also be co-ops, because we know the value of that, but also making sure that within those co-ops, we're able to locally source so we can keep some of those prices low, and we're able to really have that community ownership of these new businesses that are being seeded. And that's what's exciting about this, is that we really have an opportunity to be able to do things mobilely, streamline some of the business approvals that we have right now, to be able to get more food trucks up that can provide a variety of food that can move around our city and really be a part of that. We know one of the pain points for that has really been people getting the approvals to be able to start them. And so taking advantage of what's already a part of the Sacramento culture is something that the city can certainly support. We don't have to be the only funder of, but we certainly can be supportive of in the many ways in terms of policy advocacy and in terms of the encouragement that we can do with our key partners. And so that the innovation is the part that makes me really excited.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mr. Avina, it's your turn, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you. As a sustainability, this hits home, because this is one thing we could do, help the planet, but help the people. And we have to go with it with healthy heart, right? If we can provide a healthy meal for every individual within our community, greater opportunities, right? One of the things that education system will always say, that kids show up hungry, right? Not ready to learn, not mentally activated to go and begin the full day of the curriculum. Well, in order for us to solve one of the education problems, We have to start with the food table, right? And we have access. This is the fifth largest economy in the world and the capital of that. Like, we should have the solution to most of these problems already going. And as Dr. Flo said, I think it's important for us to tap into that innovation sector. Let's bring in innovation to help us solve some of the big problems that we have. But let's take it one step further, right? We have the ability to use these startups to our advantage to come in and say, hey, look, here's a plot of land. Teach us how we can best, cultivate this piece of land while reducing our waste at the same time. But take it one step further. Let's utilize the technologies to teach us how we can grow these plants much faster so that we can maximize growth, but then also reduce on waste, and then pass that technology and that information to other parts of the world so we can start tackling some of the greater problems that we have going on throughout the world. This isn't just a Sacramento problem, it's a global issue, but we can be the beacon of hope for others, right? And this can actually be something that will help the rest of the world if we do it right the first time. One of the other things I'd like to do, as we talked about, local ingredients. So, local chefs to provide a competition that will encourage individuals to be utilizing this farmland to our advantage and setting the standard for everyone else to follow. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our mayoral candidate forum of the evening. So thank you all so much for being here. It's been really energizing to listen to all 5 of you with your different ideas and perspectives and platforms to be able to address food and farming in Sacramento. Adrian, if you would please return to the PowerPoint, and perhaps we can show the slide again with the election resources. That'd be fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so for any of you who need it, please take a look at your district, take a look at the election info, and please register to vote if you have not yet. Again, thank you so much for everybody's participation here today, all of the districts, all of our candidates. I am excited and grateful to be a Sacramento resident, to have so much passion for our potential elected officials here. So it's Sacramento Food Policy Council's pleasure to be able to conduct this forum, to be able to have a more informed constituency, and to be able to get to know all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the forum.
Yes, thank you for all the work. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Good night, everyone. Yeah,
Good night.
have a good night.
Thanks to all of you who joined us today.